Hello everyone, Salam, Namaste, Adab, and welcome to today's event. Today we have Dr. Fouzia Farooq, an Associate Professor of History from Quaid-i-Azam University, Islamabad, Pakistan. She is going to talk between chastity and passion, the gendered words of Amir Khosrow, 1253 to 1325. And she will be formally introduced by Mehnaz Shaheen, who is a PhD scholar at Quaid-i-Azam University. Her background is also on the history of Islamic medicine, and she has written, I think, on the social history of medicine and on higher education. And there is a published work, Changing Dynamics of the Arab Rule in Multan in the 8th to 11th century CE. And the concluding remarks will be given by Dr. Saima Parveen, who is a lecturer at the public sector university in Punjab, University of Sargodha, and she has done PhD under Dr. Fouzia Farooq at Quaid-i-Azam University, and her interest is on the Sufi shrines of Lahore, reformist religious economy, etc., etc. And Dr. Fouzia is presently at Oxford, and she has joined from there. So now I invite Mehnaz Shaheen for the formal introductory remarks. Mehnaz?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Mehna Shaheen, PhD scholar in History of Islamic Medicine at Quaid-i-Azam University, Islamabad. I warmly welcome you all to this online seminar hosted by Indian Diaspora, Washington, D.C. Metro, a platform that brings together scholars and professionals from Indian subcontinent to engage with eminent thinkers, artists, and academics from around the world. It presents discussions on heritage, culture, history, democracy, and intellectual life of South Asia. Today's seminar is titled Between Chastity and Passion, The Gendered Words of Amir Khosrow, 1253 to 1325, by Professor Dr. Fouzia Farooq Ahmed. In this presentation, Dr. Fouzia offers a fresh and nuanced reading of one of South Asia's most celebrated Sufi poets, Amir Khosrow. She explores how gender, mysticism, and literary expression intersect in his works, highlighting how ideals of masculinity, femininity, and eroticism were constructed and contested in the Indo-Persian world. This project is part of her larger project, a historical novel on Amir Khosrow and his times. Our speaker, Dr. Fouzia Farooq Ahmed, is an Atlas Research Fellow at Oxford Center for Islamic Studies, Oxford. She is also an Associate Professor at Quaid-i-Azam University, Islamabad. Her past appointments include Torch Global South Visiting Professor 2024 to 2025 at All Souls College, University of Oxford, Academic Visitor, and Carnier's Junior Research Fellow at Oxford Center for Islamic Studies 2014 to 2016. Dr. Fouzia's scholarship focuses on the social, political, and religious dynamics of South Asia. She is the author of Muslim Rule in Medieval India, Power and Religion in Delhi Sultanate, published by IB Taurus. She has authored a substantial body of peer-reviewed scholarship on South Asian history, with particular emphasis on Delhi Sultanate, gender, slavery, language, and religious authority. Her research explores critical themes such as role of ulama in Khilji and Tughlaq politics, diplomacy in early Islamic and Mughal contexts, and the socio-political dimensions of femininity, resistance, and memory in both historical texts and popular media. She has also presented numerous conference papers on South Asian history at both national and international forums on topics including Shabistan-e-Raza, power groups in Delhi Sultanate, Sir Sayyid's writings, female slaves in the historiography of Delhi Sultanate, and military slavery in Delhi Sultanate. At Quaid-i-Azam, Dr. Fouzia has taught a wide range of courses across the PhD, MPhil, MSc, and BS levels. Her graduate seminars cover topics such as slavery in medieval Muslim world, governance and war in pre-modern South Asia, and historical research methodology. At undergraduate level, she has offered courses on South Asian Muslim history, Islamic art, intellectual and social history, comparative religions, and ancient civilizations, reflecting her broad command of Islamic and South Asian historical traditions. Beyond academia, she is also a playwright. Her stage dramas on themes such as environmental awareness, child protection, and history have been staged by organizations including Pakistan National Council of the Arts. She is also a visual artist, and her paintings on Gandhara art have been exhibited by Gandhara Resource Center in Pakistan. Our today's discussant is Dr. Saima Parveen. Dr. Saima Parveen has been a lecturer at University of Sargodha since 2015. She did her PhD from Quaid-i-Azam University, Islamabad, where she worked on reformist religious economy, Sufi shrines of Lahore, 1849 to 2007. Her publications include several national and international research articles, including a co-authored paper with Dr. Fouzia on the components of Hindawi language in Amir Khosrow's poetry. She was also awarded a 6-month Higher Education Commission fellowship at University of California, Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, with pleasure and pride, we present Dr. Fouzia Farooq Ahmed, and we look forward for a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. First, I think I should share my multimedia slides, and then we will start the presentation. Please let me know if you can see the slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Right. So, good evening, everyone. I thank you all for coming, and I'd like to extend my utmost gratefulness to Professor Razi for giving me this wonderful opportunity to connect with you all. Today, I'm pleased to present the topic that is very close to my heart, which is Between Chastity and Passion, the Gendered Worlds of Amir Khosrow. This presentation, as Mehnaz has pointed out, reflects a small aspect of a historical fiction novel, which is my work in progress. So first, let's talk about the structure of this presentation. This presentation is divided into 3 parts. The first one is intended for those initiating their study of Khosrow and functions as an introductory overview. The second examines how Khosrow serves as the most critical source for understanding gendered worlds in the Delhi Sultanate. And the third one addresses a problem inherent in reading Khosrow today, one I seek to underscore in this presentation, namely the deficiencies in existing English translations of his works. Many translations are either decontextualized or distort the original meaning, a dilemma similarly pronounced in the scholarship of Persian poets like Hafiz, Rumi, and Sadi. It is particularly striking how Khosrow's spiritual themes are often misrendered as homoeroticism, a problem that reveals both translational biases and challenges of mediating medieval Sufi idioms for modern audiences. So let's go to the slide number 2. Can you see the slide number 2?
Yes, we do. Yes.
So this is an introductory slide, as you can see. So the Delhi Sultanate polymath, Amir Khosrow, who is the central figure of my novel, was a writer of remarkable synthesis, blending Persian literary traditions with local Indian vernaculars to create an enriched cultural lexicon. The Delhi Sultanate, a vibrant cultural and intellectual exchange hub, provide a fertile ground for this synthesis. Known as Tutiye-Hind or Parrot of India, Khosrow's work became a keystone of the Sultanate's cultural identity, shaping literary discourse and extending into Persian and Indian aesthetics and ethics. He was a product of fascinating, tumultuous times in India, as the world around India grappled with Mongol invasions and the destruction of centers like Baghdad in 1258. The Sultanate of Delhi became a rare bastion of relative stability. Khosrow's era saw migrations from Arabia, Persia, and Central Asia, and Delhi expanded its reach under rulers like Alauddin Khilji. Despite endless wars and political upheaval, Khosrow himself described life in the Sultanate as more bearable than the other regions. Today, we will explore this unique, nuanced portrayal of gender, focusing on how he represented chastity, passion, and societal roles for women. So the third slide is extremely basic. It's just a map of Delhi, Sultanate, and map of India and Delhi. So my novel is based in the Delhi Sultanate, kingdom in northern India. Delhi was more than a political capital. It was a nexus of Persian, Indian, and Islamic traditions, merging cultural and spiritual motifs. Khosrow's poetry navigates this landscape, reflecting Sufi ideals, Persian romanticism, and folklore. So the third one, I think most of you might find this one funny because we are talking about the 4-year-long political career of Amir Khosrow. So Khosrow's ability to navigate the intricacies of courtly life and public sentiment was a remarkable feat. In 54 years of his career, he served under no fewer than 6 sultans and 3 provincial courts. He adaptedly adapted the varying temperaments of rulers, securing his positions for decades. At one point, he even served 2 rival yet interesting courts. One was the political court of Sultan Alauddin Khilji, who was known as Sultan of Army, and he was also in the camp of camp of Sufi Nizamuddin Aulia, who was revered as Sultan of Heart. He balanced royal expectations with his Sufi-influenced principles, emerging as both the Sultan's poet and people's voice. Here I have a question for you that we can discuss in Q&A session. Was he merely a skilled sycophant, as some of our contemporary cinematic portrayals suggest, or did he embody the intellectual pride of the Persianate court, a polymath whose talents transcended mere politics? Just to add my own point in this question, medieval historians, both his contemporaries and those who followed, have ranked him really high for his intellect and have regarded him as a rare genius. For instance, Khosrow's contemporary historian Ziauddin Burni, who is known for his cynicism, acknowledged Khosrow's unmatched genius, describing his poetry and music as unparalleled phenomena. So let's talk a little bit about the surviving works of Amir Khosrow and gendered perspectives. Amir Khosrow's oeuvre comprises hundreds of works, yet only a fraction has survived. Over the past 2 centuries, His writings have prompted numerous Urdu translations and English translations and commentaries. Scholars in Persian and Urdu studies have engaged in extensive debates regarding lexicon, syntax, meter, and various poetic techniques employed in his poetry. Occasionally, discussions have arisen over the interpretation of a single verse, leading to significant academic articles on potential interpolations. At times, there have been conferences on just a single theme from Amir Khosrow's works, and historians of Persian and Islamic literature have explored continuities and similarities between Khosrow's works and those of poets such as Hafiz, Rumi, Saadi, particularly focusing on gender-fluid metaphors and allegories that emerge within his poetry. So now we will move to slide number 6, which is actually the second half of our presentation, which is historical silence in Delhi Sultanate, historical sources, and Amir Khosrow as a resource. So historical sources from the Delhi Sultanate often exhibit a notable silence regarding women. Political historians like Ziauddin Barni, Afif Shams Siraj, even Yahya Sarhindi, they hardly talk about women. And historians like Ziauddin Barni assert that writing about common people, including women, was unimportant, leading to their absence in historical accounts. Hagiographies tend to focus solely on chaste women, offering scant information. Travel writers such as Ibn Battuta or Al-Umri provide glimpses of women through an outsider's observational lens and street gossip. In contrast, Amir Khosrow not only addresses women, but also gives them a voice. Much of his prose is didactic, including on the expected behavior of virtuous women. He observes women in both public and private affairs, depicting housewives, young girls fetching water, new brides in private life, while also exploring a diverse array of public women, including prostitutes, enslaved women, opium shop owners, weavers. Khosrow articulates how women perceived their surrounding, commenting on weather, male relatives, and lovers, and occasionally questioning the prevailing social ethos and values. So Khosrow goes beyond merely writing about women. He embodies their voices to express themes of separation, longing, and desire. The technique of ventriloquism reveals a nuanced understanding of gender as he moves past traditional binary norms to highlight women's experiences of loss, resilience, and emotional complexity, an audacious perspective for his time. His work also incorporates elements of androgyny and homoeroticism, reflecting a continuity with classical Persian poetry. I invite the audience to reconsider parallels with ancient antiquities and medieval Europe. Additionally, Khosrow explores rich themes and allegories and metaphors related to Sufi concepts of divine union, such as hijr, which is separation, visal, meeting, wajd, ecstasy, while invoking the motif of divine bride. So I will leave this slide for our Q&A section, and I will move on to the frameworks that Amir Khosrow works in. So Amir Khosrow's vision of gendered role in the Delhi Sultanate. Operating within patriarchal framework, Khosrow explores the public and private affairs while addressing the intersectionality of women identity. He acknowledges the complex layers that define women, particularly those of royal lineage and heritage. So as you can see that I have tried to show in this slide that for patriarchy, he writes, a woman's beauty must not be flaunted, for it carries the honor of her kin, And he's very clear about public and private. So men rode to the battles while women prepared songs of mourning. And I think the perfect example of intersectionality would be in Dil Rani Fiza Khan, where there is talk about gender, political role of women, and what was expected from women. However, the debate gets more complex because he exhibits a complex, he perceives hegemony as a structural backdrop against which women navigate their constraint agency. So for her, the men are praised for him, the men are praised for their strength and bravery, while women are cherished for their beauty and chastity. Then he actually was one of those people who talked about constraint agency for women. He acknowledges that women's role in intellectual, cultural, and family affairs, but he keeps their agency constrained within societal expectations. When depicting women's authority, it's typically within a framework of male relationships, such as being daughters or wives, suggesting that their influence is valid primarily through these connections. And then there is an active conversation about gender and power as well. So a king's command is respected by all, and it carries great weight than any woman's plea. So man is the hegemon and the woman is the follower in his writings. And then when it comes to ideals of chastity and womanhood, he does talk about social morality also. So for him, Zanya Fif Chun Marwari Das, a chaste woman is like a pearl, Kidor Satv Aschash Durmimand, hidden in a shell away from prying eyes. And the hijabe-u izzat khanwada hafshmi shavad, in her modesty, the honor of the family is secure. So his works exhibit a complex interplay between sacred and secular ideals concerning women, alongside social intersection of chastity and morality. However, Khosrow frequently addresses beauty standards and the use of beauty aid. Especially in Ejazi Khosravi, he does write about beauty standards, what kind of women were considered beautiful and what kind of beauty aids women were using. However, we also find small discussions like these that I have shown in the slide about the ideals of beauty. Women must nurture a devotion to religious rituals, ever mindful of God's vigilant presence over their conduct. They are to engage in constant prayer and strive to lead lives of unwavering piety. Women should abstain from wearing ornaments and using cosmetics, and should only look into mirror if their husband's financial means allow it. Instead, they ought to focus on learning the use of weaponry. So at one point, we see him noticing beauty standards, cosmetics. However, he does not equate beauty with virtue. In a society that often values women primarily for their physical appearances, Khosrow's verses elevate inner qualities such as chastity. He also mentions that women should be trained in the use of weapons instead of spending on beauty, thus presenting a nuanced portrayal of womanhood that balances traditional values with a recognition of female strength and autonomy. So now we come to the third part of the presentation, because I'm trying to build it up for commenting on the translations. So we will talk a little bit about Amir Khosrow's Hindui poetry, which I think is a celebration of feminine voice. First, Amir Khosrow, when he actually says that no Hindi lacks nothing in comparison to Persian. if we are to speak of facts here, and of course, Arabic is the most blessed among languages. It is the Amir. And other tongues, whether in Iran or Rome, are inferior to Hindi. And this much is clear. So there is a big debate about historicity of Amir Khosrow's poetry that we will talk about. But what was Amir Khosrow's Hindui poetry? So a significant body of Hindui poetry, including riddles, couplets, songs, has been attributed to him over the centuries, and that has come to us primarily through oral traditions. And what are those oral traditions? Performers like qawwals, who are Sufi singers, birasis, bards, women in aristocratic or common households, folk storytellers have passed these verses down through generations. While these verses have undergone changes in language and content, they retain their original spirit of playfulness, celebration, and creativity. This adaptability is one reason why Khosrow's Hindui poetry has survived for centuries. So there are two views, whether Amir Khosrow's Hindui poetry is really his or not. So one view is skeptical view that argues that Hindui poetry ascribed to him is not authentically his. Unlike Khosrow's Persian works preserved in manuscript for over 500 years, no documentation of his Hindui poetry predates the 18th century. Scholars suggest that the verses might have been orally transmitted, evolving significantly over time, and possibly they must have included elements added by later generations. And while Khosrow claimed to have composed poetry in Hindui, there is no evidence that he wrote it down. Even his most renowned kalam cannot be definitively attributed to him. And there is this supportive view also. So the supportive view holds that some of these verses are indeed his. Khosrow himself expressed pride in writing Hindui, mentioning it in his prefaces of his Persian works. Furthermore, his Persian poetry contains Hindui words and phrases with clever dual meanings, suggesting his command over the language. So people who were writing about the historicity of Amir Khosrow's works have actually analyzed the semantics and lexicology, syntax, pragmatics, phonology and morphology and etymology. So there are these really dense debates among linguists to ascertain which part of the poetry can be considered Amir Khosrow's. So misquoted passion, the risk of reading Amir Khosrow out of context. I would like us to read this one together. So, Nami donam chi manzil bud shab jai ke man budam, bihar surak se mizmil bud shab jai ke man budam. So, some of our friends in Persian studies may argue that the translation that I'm going to give is inaccurate, but let us set that aside. It's a popular translation that I have taken to make a case. So it means that I wonder what was the place where I was last night. All around me were half-slaughtered victims of love tossing about in agony. Hari pekar, sarfkad, lalai rufsari, sarapa afat dilbud, shabjai ke manbudam. There was a nymph-like beloved with cypress-like form and tulip-like face, ruthlessly playing havoc with the hearts of the lovers. Rakiban Gush bar Avaz Uvarnaz Manthasan, Sukhan Guftan Chimansal Bud Shabjai ke Manbudam. The enemies were ready to respond. He was attracting, I was dreading. It was too difficult to speak out where I was last night. So from the first three verses, it appears that Khosrow is describing an exotic night gathering filled with sensual delights, where a beautiful nymph-like creature, or to be exact, pari, translated as fairy, and many other admirers were vying for his or her attention. However, when you read the last one, खुदा खुद मीर महफिल बूझ अंदर उमकान खुसरो, Muhammad Shami महफिल बूझ शबजाई के मनबूदा. God himself was the master of ceremonies in that heavenly court, O Khusro, where the face of the prophet too was shedding light like a candle. So, however, upon examining the final line, it becomes clear that it is a religious poem, it is an art. Thus, all the preceding imagery serves as religious allegories and metaphors. I will give this another example. So I have selected a representative poem to examine. And while there are friends who say that Zihal Maskin was written by Akhtar Shirani and not Amir Khosrow, I could not really find some solid evidence to agree on this idea. So I still feel that it is Amir Khosrow's. So I will just read one verse and explain what's happening here. Zihal Maskin makunta ghafil durai naina milai batiyan. Shatabe hijra nadaram ajan. So as you can see that half of the verse is in Persian, half of it is in Hindu, creating a harmonious rhythm. When reading only Persian version of this, when reading only the English version of this poem, you can see, or one might perceive, that it is a straightforward piece on passion, love, and longing. And if you just read the English translation, it seems like a very well executed translation. However, when the Hindu and English versions are examined side by side, several nuances become evident. First, the translation is loose and only partially faithful to the original text. Then I have written this one line at the bottom, Sakhi piya ko jo main na dekhu, to kaise kaatu andheri ratiyan. So it is translated as, my dear, how will I pass the dark dungeon night without your face before? So in this line, the original meaning should have been, oh, my female friend, if I don't see my beloved. The meaning has been obscured. The English version fails to convey that the poem is spoken in a female's voice, as indicated by the term Sakhi, meaning female friend. This translation removes the feminine perspective. Furthermore, in Sufi symbolism, the male beloved often represents sublimity, such as God or a spiritual guide, while the feminine voice reflects the vulnerability of a seeker or a disciple. Thus, the translation not only erases the woman's voice, but also strips the poem of layered Sufi symbolism, where the feminine and masculine embody a dynamic between seeker and the divine guide. As you can see from previous 3 slides, one of the traps in gender studies is viewing historical subjects through an anachronistic lens, projecting modern expectations backward. Instead, Khosrow's work must be understood within a medieval context, where societal structures define spaces for survival and spaces for expression for women. And this is something that hasn't, so mistranslation and quoting out of context is something that hasn't just happened to Khosrow. It has happened to Hafiz, Saadi, Rumi, even Ghalib. So let us read this slide as a puzzle. This slide presents 6 distinct images. The first depict is didactic perspective on how women ought to conduct themselves, and it is derived from Hasht Bahesht. And he writes as like a conservative father when he says women should lower their gaze and should not sit near men who is not their husband. And the women who roamed about were not women, but. And however, when we see his famous Hindu kalam, Gharnari Gavari, it actually talks about a woman who really doesn't care about opinions, and it is actually a spiritual poem. Let the housewife say what she will. I stole a glance from the eyes of my beloved, his darling face and his charming form. I have hidden the depths of my heart. So some of you might say that one of it is from his Persian codex, and the other one is the Hindi orally transmitted Kalam. So there is a discontinuity because of that. Then when we see the third one, which is about, again, a homoerotic stanza in Hindui, about an oil seller boy. So, and this stanza is actually a template. So I read one about a barber boy, which had similar thing, one about a Hindu boy, which had similar things. However, when we go to Matlaul Anwar, Amir Khosrow talks about women and how they should stay chaste. And he says that holy water purifies everything except an immoral woman. A debased woman loses the confidence of people. People must not share their secrets with such a woman who are prone to evil acts. Now, I think by this time, some of you might be thinking that, there is this, since his Hindu Kalam is more different and his Persian prose are very conservative. So is the Hindu Kalam really his? But let me give you an example two examples from Amir Khosrow's lives. So we do know that Khosrow dressed like a woman and danced, and there are several instances where this particular thing is written, that he danced. He was a cross-dresser. He wore dancing bells and musical anklets to please his Sufi mentor. But on the other hand, when he was one of those administrators in Delhi, so he writes in Ijaz-e Khosravi. In Ijaz-e Khosravi, he does write quite a lot about prostitutes, and he does give names of women, something that I was looking for in Delhi Sultanate sources. So Ijaz-e Khosravi provides a lot of names of women, but I was very sad to read the end where he says that all the names are fictitious. So one of the prostitute, Bibi Tabha, was publicly humiliated by Amir Khosrow, who paraded her through the city on a donkey before presenting her to the ruler, Hakim, basically, not the ruler, Hakim, for punishment. And he does say that I do not understand how there can be women who do not belong to any man and women who do not belong to any man who would burn in the deepest pit of hell. So I encourage you to contemplate these contradictions as we seek to understand Amir Khosrow's worldview. Khosrow was indeed a poet of paradoxes. This dichotomy prompts us to question whether Khosrow was a moral purist or or was he merely reflecting the complexities of his society. In his work, he encapsulates both the ideals and tensions of his era, embodying a moral ambivalence that continues to intrigue the reader. So lastly, since I'm doing this novel, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about the methodology of how I'm working with it. So, and how I am dealing with the material that I'm taking from the Sultanate sources, especially Amir Khosrow. So in my exploration of Khosrow's gendered worlds, I draw upon the methodologies of scholars like Saidiya Hartman, Tia Miles, and Hilary Mantel to deepen my understanding of women woven into his poetry. Inspired by Hartman's wayward life, beautiful experiments, and her concept of critical fabulation, I engage creatively with historical narratives, striving to bring to life the marginalized voices often neglected in official records. Similarly, Tia Miles' approach in All That She Carried, which constructs these silent lives, and Hilary Mantel's masterful use of narrative in Wolf Hall inform my efforts to read between the lines of Khosrow's work, reconstructing the lives and agency of women within his work. This approach blends historical research with imaginative interpretation, offering a nuanced view of those frequently absent from written history: housewives, market vendors, enslaved individuals. Through this lens, I seek to highlight the complex, often unrecorded experiences of women in Delhi Sultanate, allowing us to understand their presence not merely as symbols, but as active agents within Khosrow's world. So at the end, I would like to give some concluding remarks. And first, as you can see, that there is this Punjabi poem by Shah Inayat that Saima will be able to explain better. And uh, this is a Sufi poem, and there is gender ventriloquism, and it actually talks about love, passion, dance, uh, and the themes, the ideas are very much consistent with the kind of things that Amir Khosrow was saying. So to conclude, this presentation has unfolded three movements: an introduction for those initiating their journey into Khosrow's world, an exploration of his unparalleled value in reconstructing gendered histories of Delhi Sultanate, and finally, a critical intervention regarding the challenges of reading Khosrow in translation. The inadequacies of existing English translations, where meanings are fragmented, context obscured, and spiritual longing reductively recast as homoeroticism, presents a unique scholarly predicament. Unlike Hafiz, Rumi, or Sadi, whose works, despite their own translational complexities, have benefited from sustained scholarly engagement, Khosrow's oeuvre remains acutely vulnerable to these interpretative fissures, and and it demands a more urgent reckoning. This dilemma not only underscores the urgency for retranslation, but also invites us to reflect on how modern lens risk distorting pre-modern cosmologies. Herein lies the enduring challenge and promise of engaging with Khosrow today. The gendered universe of Amir Khosrow is both layered and intricate. It is often challenging to impose contemporary understanding upon the past. Khosrow's works offer a gateway into complex lives of women in the Delhi Sultanate. Through critical fabulation and symbolic framework, we can reimagine the unrecorded experiences of women, portraying them as agents within the gendered landscape of their time. In Khosrow's narrative, chastity and passion intertwine, creating stories of both honor and challenging the historical confines. I invite you to reconsider Khosrow, not merely as a court poet, but as a historian of heart, an anthropologist of desire, and perhaps a radical empath. I thank you all for all your attention, and thank you, Dr. Razi. I think I've concluded my presentation.
Thank you so much. It was quite informative, very interesting. And let's hear Dr. Saima Parveen for the concluding remark. She has plenty of time. If you would like to go more extended version, that's fine with us. And then later on we go for question and answer. Saima? Yeah. No, आपका स्पीकर का मसला है नहीं क्या हुआ टेस्ट नहीं हुआ
Can't hear.
सेम आप फोन से कर लें आप अपने फोन से ज्वाइन कर लें इफ दैट इज द इशू आप अपने फोन से ज्वाइन करें और करके देखें while remain joining try to connect with the phone और फोन पे देखें बोलें Faisal, can you, when she rejoins, I am not sure how she, उनका issue है थोड़ा स्पीकर का. Sorry everyone, but no, let's hope. She's getting connected. Just a second, I think of a minute. Hello.
She said just 1 minute.
I saw it, yeah.
She's there.
Am I audible right now?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, you are.
Your video,
Okay.
your video is up, but anyway.
Any video is on 8 minutes. I have to.
Okay, good. You are now
Working now.
working.
So it's working now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience, everyone. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. As we draw this engaging seminar to a close, I would like to thank Dr. Fouzia for such wonderful and interesting insights from her historical fiction novel project. Her wonderful narration made us travel through the worlds of Amir Khosrow, a poet, musician, scholar, writer, courtier, and whatnot. But the highlight for today's seminar was his gendered world, the world where he often portrayed himself as a woman, felt and expressed like a woman, helping us to feel and understand the feminine sentiments of the medieval South Asia. Most of his literary works are in Persian language, which is a genderless language, means there are no separate pronouns for men and women. But his Hindvi composition, many of which survive in oral tradition, bhajans, riddles, and qawwalis, echo female voice, which was a practice of the later Sufi poets like Shah Hussain, Bulle Shah, Khwaja Ghulam Farid, Shah Anayat, as mentioned by Dr. Fouzia, and many others. As we all know, the love Amir Khosrow had for his Chishti Murid, Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, and often when he is addressing his murshid in his poetry, he specifically uses feminine expression. मोहे अपने ही रंग में रंग ले, तू तो साहिब मेरा महबूबे इलाही. मोहे अपने ही रंग में रंग ले. हमारी चंदरिया पिया की पगड़िया, वो तो दोनों बसंती रंग है. जो कुछ मांगे रंग की रंगाई, मोरा जोबन गिरवी रख ले. आन पड़ी दरबार तुम्हारे, मुरी लाज शर्म सब रख ले, मोहे अपने ही रंग में रंग ले. As Dr. Fouzia has mentioned about the ritual of sati and undergendered burdens, the Sufi poet also adopted this approach to portray divine love and the suffering of the soul, sometimes even reflecting the societal inequalities faced by women. This usage allowed them to express unconventional themes and challenge societal norms, particularly in a patriarchal society. By adopting a female persona, Sufi poets could explore themes of love, eroticism, non-conformity, and rebellion, offering a counter-narrative to dominant hegemonic ideologies. For instance, सब सखियों में चादर मेरी मैली, देखे हंस हंस नारी. अब के बहार चादर मेरी रंग दे, पिया रख ले लाज हमारी. सतका बाबा गंज शिकर का, रख ले लाज हमारी. कुतुब फरीद मिल आए बराती, खुसरो राज दुलारी. कोई सास कोई नन से झगड़े, हमको आस तिहारी. रख ले लाज हमारी निजाम, रख ले लाज हमारा. Also, it was specifically the influence of Indic motif of virah, which means separation and longing, a recurring theme in Indian lyrical poetry, also contributed to the prevalence of the female voice in Sufi poetry, amplifying its emotional and spiritual impact. Another example, Nizamuddin Aulia को कोई समझाए, जीव जो मनाऊं तो रूठा ही जाए. चूड़ियां फोड़ पलंग पे डालूं, इस चोली को दूं आग लगाए. सोनी सैन डरावन लागे, बिरहा की अग्नि डस डस जाए. Scholars like Ishwar Dayal Gaur, Shamim Barni Abbas have investigated the role of female voice in Sufi rituals and devotional practices in India and Pakistan. Another highlight of today's talk was about the authenticity of his oral Hindi literature. Are these voices truly Khosrow's? And if so, what do they tell us about his engagement with gender? On one hand, some scholars question the authenticity of the Hindi corpus attributed to Khosrow, pointing out the lack of direct manuscript evidence and the tendency of oral traditions to ascribe beloved texts to prominent historical figures. But on the other hand, dismissing these verses too quickly risks ignoring how oral traditions themselves function as archives, fluid, embodied, and alive, especially in cultures where literacy was once confined to elite and male dominated spheres. And so, perhaps we must broaden our understanding of authorship. Could Khosrow have participated in a collective creative space where the boundaries between poet and performer, male and female, courtly and vernacular were porous? Could his poetic legacy include not only what he wrote, but what was remembered in his name, performed in his spirit, and carried forward by voices, especially women's voices, excluded from the written archive? In this light, the gendered nature of Khosrow's oral Hindi poetry is not merely a curiosity. It becomes a lens through which we interrogate agency, representation, and cultural memory. It reminds us that Khosrow's world was not monolithic, but one shaped by exchange and hybridity, not just across language and empire, but across gender and voices too. As a scholar, it is our task not simply to authenticate or disprove, but to interpret, to listen carefully to how texts, oral and written, marginal and central, speak across time. Khosrow's legacy invites us to listen not just for historical accuracy, but for emotional truth, for cultural resonance, and for the silenced voices that continue to echo in the margins of archives. In closing, let us not ask only whether these verses were really Khosrow's, but what it means that so many people, especially women, have found their lives and longings reflected in them for centuries. The persistence of these poems, sung in gatherings and whispered in homes, is itself a form of authenticity, a testament not just to the poet's genuine, but to deep human need for expression, intimacy, and connection. Thank you all for your generous engagement today. May we continue to explore the many voices heard and unheard that shape our literary heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saima. Thank you very much. This concludes this session. Before we go to question and answer session, we have this next coming Saturday. We don't have a session. It's very unusual, but we have to, we have a very major function here at the local Aligarh Alumni Association. They are celebrating, so we are not doing any session because of that. And next to that is a very major session here on the rethinking affirmative action for Muslims in contemporary India. It is a major report, a joint venture from US here, US India Policy Institute, as well as the Center for Development Policy Practice. Dr. Hilal Ahmed is very well-known scholar, and he has done this major report from University of Pennsylvania while he was as a scholar here. So please join this on Saturday, May 31st. May 24 is our local Aligarh Alumni Association Foundations Day celebration. Please, if you can join, there are references we can provide later on. Thank you all. And now I invite Dr. Rafat Hussain as a moderator for the question and answer session. Rafat.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raziuddin, and thank you all the speakers Dr. Farooq and Ms. Shaheen and Dr. Parveen. It was a wonderful session. So let's begin the question and answer session. So there are two options that you can raise your digital hand to ask the question, and I will monitor that, and you can enter your comments in a chat box. So there are a couple of comments already in the chat box, and I like Dr. Farooq to address them. So first one is from our Dr. Ishrat Aziz Saab. So passion exists, chastity is a concept, passion is a part of human nature, chastity is a moral concept, passion expresses itself, chastity has to be enforced. So his question is, has Khosrow explored the moral rationale of chastity? Please go ahead.
Sorry, if you could repeat the last line, I think I missed
Okay,
it.
so his question is, has Khosrow explored the moral rationale of chastity?
It can come only from Ishad Bhai. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think moral rationale itself is a very philosophical thing. What do you mean by moral rationale? I have a counter question.
Ishrat Bhai, do you want to come online and explain a little bit more? Although it is very clear, chastity is a concept, passion is a part of human nature, chastity is a moral concept, passion expresses itself, chastity has to be enforced. The question is, has Khosrow explored the rationale of chastity?
Well, actually, in his works, so if there's nothing more to elaborate, then Khosrow does talk about chastity in his works of prose. Like there is a letter for the daughter, it actually tells that how women have to live within a household. And there is this entire philosophy of seclusion that he talks about. And there is this, and I think with chastity, he primarily means that women should stay secluded, stay away from men, and there should be least interaction. So this is what I got, like, this is what I would say. So there is this, all the, so whatever is written in Matlaul Anwar or Hash Behesh, that it's all about seclusion that he talks about. Yeah.
So Ishrat Bhai is here. Ishrat Bhai, do you want to say something? You are, please unmute yourself, I think.
I have unmuted, and
The video
I
is
don't really have much to add because I know it's a terribly difficult question.
yeah.
And it's a question that's very important and basic. But I think the answer is what I said, that chastity is a concept, and passion is something natural. It exists. Passion exists, but chastity is a concept, and there is a rationale for it. Moralists have dwelt in a very big way, but Khosrow is an artist. He's not a moralist, and I mean, I have my own views, but I don't want to impose on anybody here just now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ishrat Bhai. Okay, let's move on to the next question from Anila Muzaffar. I found your treatment of female agency in Khosrow's Hasht Behisht particularly compelling. Could you expand on how storytelling becomes a gendered act in his work?
Well, of course, yes. Thank you for noticing that. So in Hush Bahish, the storytelling women are often moral agents. So conveying didactic tales that challenges sometimes challenges masculine authority. So I feel that the concept, the more, so Khosrow has written a lot about chastity. So the more you have read, the more you would find it hard to explain it. So their speech so the women who are agents of this moral, we can say moral agents, their speech is framed as wise and persuasive, suggesting Khosrow's awareness of pedagogical role that women could play in these narratives and even within a patriarchal framework. So I think he does see a pedagogical role that women can play. So thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question again from a chat box is from Rumesha. Thank you for your presentation, rich in nuances. In thinking about Khosrow's poetic world, how might we locate his voice in broader discourses of gendered aesthetics in Persian literature?
So what a generous and important question. Khosrow sits in a fascinating intersection, drawing on Persian tropes of the beloved and the veil. And it also inflicts them with Indic motifs. And his aesthetic is deeply gendered. However, the binaries are not the binaries that we expect. So it's a valuable lens, and I think, yeah, so I think there are a lot of continuities between him and other Persianate poets like Hafiz, Sadi, and yes, Rumi.
Thank you. The next one is again from the chat box, and I will come back to the raised hand later on. I'm going by. So Sumera Minhaj, your presentation beautifully illustrated the tension between chastity and passion in Khosrow's narrative voice. How do you think this duality shaped the reception of his female characters in courtly and mystical setting?
Okay.
It's a question about his courtly and mystical setting.
Okay. Thank you. That is an excellent point. So this duality reflects Khosrow's sensitivity to Indo-Persian literary convention and Sufi symbolism. So in courtly setting, chastity affirms honor and ideal femininity, while passion allows women to embody the ecstatic, devotional mode seen in mystical poetry. Together, they create a space for female expression that is paradoxically restrained, yet profound.
Thank you, Sama. Usman Siddiqui Saab, you briefly mentioned riddles and songs attributed to women in Khosrow's corpus. Could you say more about how these voices trouble gender hierarchies?
Okay, so thank you so much. The riddles, pahelis, or geet attributed to Khosrow in oral tradition. Well, we did have a discussion that whether they are his or not. They often adopt voices of young women who are teasing, mocking, outwitting male counterparts. Even if their historicity is difficult to pin down, the persistence in cultural archives suggests that Khosrow's legacy, it points out a legacy of Amir Khosrow that values wit and sensual knowledge in feminine expressions. And yeah, these pieces kind of democratize literacy, culture, and give voice to those who were earlier unheard and who rarely appear in elite Persianate literature. So, yeah.
Thank you again, Dr. Farooq. Let's go to the digital hand. Dr. Syed Amir, please.
Thank you. First of all, welcome back, Rafa, to your post after absence of several weeks.
2 weeks.
So I want to thank all three learned speakers. Very enlightening. One thing which intrigues me is that Indian poets of Persian, Ghalib, Iqbal, later ones, of course, they have not been very much appreciated in Iran, Persian poets. But contrary to that, Amir Khosrow is very much appreciated. And he's so popular, as you quoted in this, Namidanam cha manzil boot shabjaye ke man budam is so popular that somebody naive like myself can also appreciate it. It is sung by all over and has been over the years. So maybe you can tell the reason for that popularity. But I have another question that in your last slide, you quoted, or it was translated, Amir Khosrow, mind addressing to the Muslim, mind your own business, for my mind is with wine and young lads. And that has intrigued people. I mean, and we read that Amir Khosrow was at fighting with the Mongols on the border during Balban's time. His son Muhammad, who was killed there ultimately, he was very close to them, and he was also very close, or became very close, to Hassan Sanjari, who came from out of India and was very much appreciated poet. And he was so close that people started suspicious of the nature of relationship. And we know that Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia is largely supposed to be, or as far as we can tell, was a spiritual relationship. So it seemed very ambiguous, and even Rizauddin Burni had not mentioned anything about his marriage. Supposedly he was married, had a wife, but it's not completely clear that this indeed was the case. Maybe you can throw some light on that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. So do you, I just want to be clear, are you talking about Amir Khosrow's family or Nizamuddin Aulia's family?
Amir Khosrow's family. He's not,
Yes.
this doesn't seem to be very clear statement somewhere that he was married or had a wife or had children, although it seemed to be indirect some evidence that indeed this was the case, but we are not sure.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Well, so I'll start with the family discussion first. That I was also trying to look at it, that we get the name of the grandfather, maternal grandfather, mother, Daulat Naz Begum. We learn about his father, and his siblings, and but yes, about the family, I don't know. I couldn't come across anything except a letter to the daughter, the one that I've been mentioning, because it actually talks. He does talk about it in a very conservative manner. So yes, that is there, but I did not find the it's kind of strange that you find names of family members, but yes, nothing about his own family. And
I was most wondering about his questions about sexual orientation.
Yes, yes, sexual orientation. Actually, my supervisor once asked me the same question, and this is what led me to start working on the gender expression. I don't know. I can only say that I think the gender binaries that exist in our world now did not exist in medieval times. So I'm not really sure. So there is no evidence of him being a homosexual, and there is no evidence of him not being one. So his poetry has these similar kind of traits as other Persianate poets. And in fact, looking at English literature, we did have some discussions about medieval English poets. They also had similar kind of themes of gender, homoeroticism. So, and I am talking about core poets. So I yet have to, figure this one out. I cannot say anything for sure. And the third thing was the reason for his popularity. So as I think, as Yaudin Berni says, when he writes this small sketch of Amir Khosrow, he says that Amir Khosrow has created such music and such poetry that has never been created and will never be created. So I think most of what he was writing was extraordinary, and that has been the reason why it has survived for so long. But yes, so about the gender thing, I do not know. Sorry.
Thank you.
That was a safe answer.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was on mute. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Farooq and Dr. Amir. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Dr. Nazir Ahmed, please.
जी आदाब सलाम नमस्ते डॉक्टर फौजिया साहबा ने जिस नफासत और हिसासियत से अमीर खुसरो के कलाम में आफत और जज्बात के बाहमी रब्त और तजाद को बयान किया है वो काबिल तहसीन है. Now to a comment and a question, it was an extraordinary period that he lived in, a convulsive period in world history, with the Mongols devastating much of Eurasia, and on the spiritual side, the Sufi tradition in Islam at its zenith. And Amir Khosrow was a compatriot, give or take a few years, of Ibn al-Arabi, Shaduli, Sheikh Shaduli of Egypt, Rumi of Konya, and of course Nizamuddin Awliya. Now, he is known, Amir Khosrow, as a poet of the spirit. And unless we understand the Tasawwuf, as the professor rightly pointed out, it's impossible to translate the Tasawwuf. And I have tried translating so many of the books from Urdu to English. It's impossible to translate Sufi ideas into English because the tradition just does not exist. Anything that we do is at best a compromise, and at worst it is a parody. It just loses its meaning. So to infuse ideas of gender and so on, I wonder whether it's a linguistic reflection, a constriction of the spiritual ideas, or indeed, for instance, questions have been raised about his gender. To me, as a practitioner of the soul, the question itself comes across as fairly absurd, if I may make a strong statement. Because, for instance, when we look at Khuda Khud Mere Majlis, Muhammad Shami Mahfil Bood, it's such an ecstatic, beautiful statement. It's impossible. And I can go on and on. But my question to you, ma'am, is this. Have you, I'm sure you have, contemplated on the difficulty of projecting the spiritual ethos of the age, especially when it comes to these greats such as Amir Khosrow and so on the space-time in the modern times when people just do not have any inkling at all of spirituality?
thank you so much for this really informative comment. I think I totally agree. In fact, in the morning, I was just reading something from Anne-Marie Shamol, and I actually felt that the concept of God and the entire idea of cosmos that we have, that if even we try to translate it, if even we find such vocabulary or structures or frameworks where if we could explain this, our reader who is reading it in English language cannot really fathom what we're saying. I mean, there was this world of this Persianate world that had different kind of ethos, and the Arab Persianate world had different kind of matrix when it comes to spirituality, and these small, very delicate themes and ideas, if even we try to weave them with our words, people probably in many parts of the world will not be able to understand what we are saying, like what Amir Khosrow is saying. So yeah.
Thank you.
It's not just about the language, it's not just about the translation, but it's also about how it will be received. And there are a lot of limitations and which make it almost impossible to convey the message.
Thank you, Dr. Farooq.
अगर आप इजाजत दें तो मैं एक और दो अल्फाज कहना चाहता हूँ।
जी।
अच्छा, ये देखिए, अगर आप इब्न अल अरबी के ख्यालात का असर जो है अमीर खुसरो के कलाम में कहाँ तक मलबूस है, ये काबिल गौर फिक्र। आप जैसे आप फरमा रहे हैं, थिंग इज ज़ात वाजिब ताला बाएतिबार हकीकत अपने बहुक्म खौल ताला वला युहीतून बिइल्मन, किसी के इहाते इल्म में वो इदराक में नहीं आ सकती, वो सब कुयूस से मुतलक और आज़ाद है। And then we come along with our language, like the great man that is I have studied some of his poetry, although I'm not that good in Farsi. These people leave us behind. So in addition to the translation, to reach to that level, for instance, the allusion to human spirit of femininity, that's about the only way you can describe the fickleness of humanness in human language. Language itself becomes insufficient to describe the stations that are experienced by the people of Suluk as they traverse the path from the station of humanity to the divine station. माफ कीजिए, कुछ कहना चाहता हूं।
Yes, I agree to this point. Yes, excellent point.
Sorry, I was on mute again. Let's move on to the next one, to Saima. What was the inspiration behind Khosrow's feminine expression? Was there any feminine influence on him from his family side, like wife, daughter, or mother, or his love attachment with someone? Or you can say girlfriend.
So yes, I do not know, frankly. I am not really sure. So there are two women from the family that we know. Like one is Daulat Naz Begum, was his mother, and a little bit about his sister, but almost nothing about his wife or anything about any romantic interest, of female romantic interest. So I'm not really sure, but I do believe that this feminine side, this gender ventriloquism, speaking in women's voice, must have been a tradition which was not just particular to the Persianate world, but it must have been there in India also. So when he writes about reverence towards God and Sufi master in a feminine voice, I think that actually comes from a tradition. And yeah, and just to give you an example that I came across this translation by Rebecca Gold, who was probably published in a Harvard journal in 2016. It was a translation of Hassan al-Asidzi's ghazal. And so that ghazal also had similar kind of themes like religious and profane, sacred and sexual. So I didn't quite see what was originally written, like with how it was written in Persian, but when I was reading the English translation, I could see a lot of consistency with Khosrow. So yes.
Thank you, Dr. Farooq. Two last questions, one from Asad Saab and another is from Dr. Aram. Okay, so Asad Saab, Ms. Fouzia, you mentioned that Khosrow's women often traverse emotional extremes. Might we see this as a reflection of larger societal anxieties about women's autonomy in the Delhi Sultanate?
So that's a thoughtful reading. Yes, I believe that Khosrow's portrayals are deeply embedded in socio-political anxieties of his time. So the oscillation between passionate agency and virtuous silence in the female characters mirrors elite concerns about balance between mobility and honor and control in a society, negotiating Persian, Indian, and Islamic codes. So yes, it does reflect. Yeah.
Thank you. Last one from Dr. Iram. How Nizamuddin Aulia influenced Amir Khosrow's poetry?
Well, so Nizamuddin Aulia, I think, Nizamuddin Aulia was the muse actually. So he was the person for whom most of the poetry was written. So I think all the ventriloquist tone that Amir Khosrow adopts is for Nizamuddin Aulia. And I think it was the reverence for Nizamuddin Aulia through which we are able to explore this particular dimension of love, spirituality, the concept of divine bride, the ideas of Wasl and Hijr and Wajd in Amir Khosrow's poetry. So yes, I think he was the major influence.
Thank you. I see that there are two professors, well-known professors are in attendance. I am checking whether they are still there. And it will be nice if they have a comment. So Barbara Metcalf, I think she has left. And let's see if Professor Harbans is there. Oh, Harbans Mukhia Saab, you are still there. So thank you. And we would love to hear your comment or a question. Professor Mukhia, please. I ask you to unmute. Faisal, can you unmute them?
Yeah.
Okay, it's done. Thank
Hello.
you, Mr. Mukhia.
Actually, thank you very much. It was a delightful talk I heard. I had put in a question, very simple question actually, but somehow it hasn't been read. The question was, Amir Khosrow's, Hinduvi poetry speaks very poignantly about the daughter's place in her in her parental home. She's always the guest there. You see, हम तो रे बाबुल तेरे आंगन की चिड़िया जिधर उड़ाओ उड़ जा रे वगैरह. That is the tone of all his all of his Hindi poetry about daughters. So it's very poignant, very moving poetry about the daughter's condition, the parental home. So I just wanted to know how authentic can we accept this as how authentic would this poetry be? I know it's oral tradition and all that, and oral tradition is never fully authenticated. But even so, have any scholars paid attention to this notion of Amir Khosrow about the daughter's place in the parental home?
My sincere apology, Professor Mukhia. I missed your question. Now I see that.
No, that's all right. No, that's yeah.
Yes,
please.
Thank you, Professor Mukhia. I must say that I'm a great fan of your work, and
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, and second one is that you have. I think this is an excellent point that most of the Hindi poetry is about these young brides who are longing for their parental home or women who are about to leave. So it's about women of a certain age who are either about to leave the house or has left the house. So yes, there is this consistency that we see, and sometimes so this bride's lament that you talked about, kahe ko byahi vides, I was looking at several versions. So I don't think I have seen any secondary work on particularly on daughters tone in Amir Khosrow's Hindi poetry, but I think there is a lot of material, and this actually can make potentially can make a good research article. So Khosrow, for this particular piece, Kahe Ko Byahi Vides, I thought it was brilliant, and it actually it's kind of a lament that talks about limited autonomy afforded to women and highlights their emotional sacrifices when he says भैया को दियो बाबुल महला दो महला हमको दियो परदेस, like you gave my brother
right.
I mean
Yes.
and so I think entire this particular one Kahe Ko Byahi Vides, it's like a bride's lament, and she's questioning her father that you've given my brother this and you haven't given me that.
Yes.
And yes, and this actually this can actually make an exciting paper.
Well, I'm glad if I've suggested, I've been able to, I've become an instrument in suggesting this to you for your further research.
Okay, perfect. Now you have a topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. And thank you to all three speakers. And this concludes the question and answer session. And Razi Bhai, you are welcome to leave now because you had to leave for the airport, or maybe you already left.
I think he
So
left.
he left already.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone once again.
May I say something, sir? This is Neeraj Kumar Lal.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, we heard so many people talking about so many things about Khosrow. But one point I want to make, Khosrow has always proclaimed that he was an out and out Indian, and his language was Hindi or Hindvi. Khosrow's influence is on people who came before, after him, even Kabir, Ghalib, and in the current environment or current situation, even Sahir. So similarly, Khosrow was also influenced by some traditions prevalent in India at that time. You see, the thing that gender classification, I think Khosrow used this as a symbol, but he wanted to say something more. You see, chastity. Chastity is a concept which cannot be enforced. It has to be practiced. So where did it come from to Khosrow? Manu Smriti Manu has said there are 10 indices of dharma in which suchi, piousness, and indriya nigraham, sublimation of your senses. These two constitute chastity. So Khosrow wants to tell everyone you have to practice chastity so that when you ultimately meet your God, रोजे mahshar, आपको जवाब देना है. That day you will be asked, what did you do? जो मीर तकी मीर ने कहा ना, जहां में तुम आए थे क्या कर चले. कोई पूछेगा मीर तो क्या बतलाओगे, जहां में तुम आए थे क्या कर चले. तो खुसरो यूज दिस एज सिंबल. ये कोई जेंडर का उसमें फेमिनिज्म और मैस्कुलिनिटी की कोई बात नहीं थी, सो फार एज आई अंडरस्टैंड. आप देखिए जो चादर वर्ड है, चादर इज नॉट अबाउट ए फिजिकल शीट, इट इज अबाउट सोल. जो कबीर दास ने कहा, झीनी झीनी रे बिनी चदरिया, इंगला पिंगला ताना भरनी, 5 तत्व गुण तीनी चदरिया, 5 एलिमेंट्स एंड 3 वर्च्यूज, 5 तत्व गुण तीनी चदरिया. और लोगों ने जोड़ी मैली कर दीनी चदरिया, दास कबीर जतन से ओढ़ी, ज्यों की त्यों धर दीनी चदरिया. That means Kabir wants to send a message that chastity has to be practiced and you have to keep your soul pure. जो उसी बात को देखिए साहिल लुधियानवी ने कहा, फिल्म आई दिल ही तो है, लागा चुनरी में दाग छुपाऊं कैसे, ये दुनिया मोरे बाबुल का घर, वो दुनिया ससुराल. एक्चुअली काहे को ब्याहे विदेश is only a symbol, girls complaining to their father, but actually this world is father's home and ultimately all of us have to go to our sasural. That is our heavenly abode because that is our permanent abode. कोई भी लड़की जो शादी हो जाती है जिसकी वो ससुराल से वापस नहीं आती है, that is why this has been used as a symbol कि आपको हर किसी को, लड़की को नहीं हर किसी को जाना है. और the dress too, he dressed as a woman or his attire was a woman's attire. ये सब ये जो बात आई देखिए ये कहाँ से आई. He was an Indian born in UP, Eta. Eta is in western Uttar Pradesh, very near to Mathura. कृष्ण और राधा के बीच में कोई पुरुष नहीं है. There is no male, only Krishna and gopis, all females. That is why it is said that God is only masculine, everyone is feminine. और आप नुसरत फातेह अली खान को सुन लीजिएगा, श्याम बने हैं राधिका, राधा बन गई श्याम, सांसों की माला पे सिमरू में पी का नाम. तो यहाँ जब लव है तो जेंडर अपने आप खत्म हो जाता है. There is no gender. So Khosrow talks about the love between every person. Just because someone is a human being, you have to love him, and ultimately you have to meet the God, your beloved, the God. Ultimate beloved is the God, and to reach him you have to remain, you have to practice chastity and not to hurt anyone in this world. और उन्होंने देखिए जो बातें लिखी हैं, आप ऐसे देखिए, in his lifetime there were 11 kings in succession in India of Delhi Sultanate, out of which he was in 7 kings court. Even Alauddin Khilji के कोर्ट में वो थे, जहाँ though he did not agree with policies of Alauddin Khilji, but still he praised him just to be with him so that he can bring the common man's issues to the king. He was equally attached to the king as well as to the common people. So this was his personality, the multifaceted personality. खुसरो को इनसे कोई, इन चीजों से कोई लेना देना नहीं था कि वर्ल्ड में उनको क्या मिलता है. That is why उनकी फैमिली का कोई जिक्र नहीं है, because family for him was immaterial. हाँ, यस, उनके जो पीर थे, जो मुर्शिद थे, निजामुद्दीन औलिया, he was very much attached to him. और अब कबीर दास ने भी बाद में कहा है ना, गुरु कुम्हार सिस्कुंभ है, घड़ी घड़ी काढ़े कोट, अंतर हाथ सहार दे, बाहर मारे चोट. तो कहते हैं गुरु गोविंद दो खड़े काके लागू पाए, बलिहारी गुरु आपने गोविंद दियो बताए. तो गुरु या पीर या मुर्शिद जो है वो इंडियन ट्रेडिशन में उसका his place is very, very important and very high as compared to the student or his murid. That is why he was so much respectful and affectionate towards Nizamuddin Aulia and prayed him like God. जो सखी पिया को जो मैं न देखूं तो कैसे काटूं अंधेरी रतिया, तो ये देखिए एक इसी को बच्चन जी ने बाद में कहा है कि अंधेरी रात किसी के पंथ में पलकें बिछाए कौन बैठा है, अंधेरी रात में दीपक जलाए कौन बैठा है। तो ये जहाँ दो हार्ट के बीच में लव है ना, तो दे लॉन्ग फॉर ईच अदर। तो ये अंधेरी रतिया कोई आपकी तिरगी की रात नहीं है, ये वही है फैज साहब ने कहा तुम आए हो ना शब इंतजार गुजरी है, तलाश में है शहर बार बार गुजरी है, शहर गुजर रही है लेकिन शब इंतजार खत्म नहीं हो रही है। तो यही अंधेरी बात है वो कि ये हिज्र की रात, इसीलिए उन्होंने कहा कि ताब हिजरा न दारम जा, ये हिज्र की जो ताब है, जुदाई का जो हीट है, आई एम नॉट एबल टू टॉलरेट, न लेहू काहे लगाए छतियां, तुम क्यों नहीं मुझे अपने सीने से लगा लेते हो, ये ताब खत्म हो जाए।
नीरज साहब क्या जबरदस्त एनालिसिस है आपकी, आपको तो इनवाइट करना पड़ेगा। थैंक यू सो मच, इट इज सो ब्यूटीफुली एनालाइज्ड and I think Dr. Farooq will also agree with me. It's a beautiful analysis and thank you so much. That concludes the session. And
before
again,
leaving, sir, before leaving, I have a message for Aligarh Association.
go ahead.
वो ऐसा है कि अलीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी में, मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी में एक डॉक्टर आबिद रजा बेदार हुआ करते थे, शायद कुछ लोग जानते होंगे उनको, लाइब्रेरियन थे।
जी जी, बेदार साहब।
हाँ, तो बेदार साहब का इंतकाल हो गया 28 मार्च को। तो आज उनकी बेटी दुख्तर जो शाइस्ता बेदार है, उनसे मेरी बात हुई थी, तो उन्होंने बताया था, तो हमने इस डायस्पोरा के बारे में बताया, तो ही रिक्वेस्टेड मी कि आप अगर उनको खबर दे सकते हैं तो दे दीजिएगा, क्योंकि कुछ लोग शायद उनको जानते होंगे, तो उनको ये बात मालूम हो जानी चाहिए।
जी जरूर, थैंक यू।
इसीलिए आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है।
Okay, I will let Dr. Raziuddin know. And thank you so much again. And that concludes the session. Again, thank you so much for all the speakers and enjoy the rest.